We are live and it is draft month. It's finally here. Draft month, 24 days away from the draft. The buzz is running wild. The city's going crazy. We got the Astros playing. We got the Final Four concluding. And we got the moment that most people on this channel have been waiting for. The draft is very, very close. It is the Locker Room, number one source for Texans daily digital content. I'm Landry Locker. You can hear me Monday through Friday, 10 to 2. On In the Loop on Sports Radio 610 on the Odyssey app and Sports Radio 610. Let's just start with kind of some of the buzz in the AFC South. Now, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, that's been what we've been focusing on around here. It appears that it's going to be Bryce Young, and then it appears that it could be CJ Stroud. But those are the two names that we focused on the most. Now, Peter King put out kind of, I don't think it's really a report. I think it's more so like clear gossip. But he talked about the possibility of the Texans not taking a quarterback number 2 overall, said it was a long shot, but then said someone said that it could or couldn't happen. Those are the type of reports that I just kind of acknowledge. It wasn't as strong of a report as when Peter King said he talked to Ryan Poles, and Ryan Poles said that he talked to Nick Caserio. It was more of a vague, just kind of gossip, because these guys have been around for a long time. They gossip a lot and they hear a lot of things. But that was just kind of gossip. But we assume that the Texans are going to get either CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. And those are going to be the two guys that are off the board. And that's where it gets incredibly interesting, because now Daniel Jeremiah is throwing out the possibility, and this would actually make a lot of sense. He's throwing out the possibility of the Tennessee Titans going up and trading Arizona for that number 3 pick. Tennessee going from 11 up to 3, whatever that would cost. We've seen Carolina go up 8 spots and what the cost was there. Got to think there would be a similar cost with Tennessee, but Tennessee, who's kind of on that mediocre treadmill right now, going up and getting a quarterback. Maybe it's someone that's not necessarily ready to play right now. Maybe it's a project like Anthony Richardson or Will Levis, and they ride out Ryan Tannehill's final year, and they use that draft pick and hop the Colts to get the 3rd pick in the draft. Monty Ossenfort has a relationship with Mike Vrabel. The Cardinals are definitely not taking a quarterback, and if you saw the price that the Bears got from Carolina, it might make sense for Tennessee to go up there. So there could be a possible scenario where we see 4 quarterbacks taken with the top 4 picks, and 3 of those quarterbacks are all coming into the AFC South, which would be wild. There's also been momentum out of Indianapolis that the Colts like Will Levis. Now, do the Titans like Will Levis too? They've been kind of linked to him a little bit with meetings and whatnot. So could we see a situation where Tennessee leaps Indianapolis and they get the quarterback that the Colts like, and then all of a sudden the Colts are kind of chasing their tail? Or could this be a ploy for the Cardinals to up the price with the Indianapolis Colts to move up 1 spot? It's really, really wild, and it's specifically wild in the AFC South when you think about the possibility of 3 rookie quarterbacks coming into the division along with Trevor Lawrence. And if that happened, I think the division plays out in one of 2 ways. Scenario number 1 would be Jacksonville just runs away with the division, and the Las Vegas win total of 10.5, Jacksonville wins that, and they just run away with a comfortable lead in the AFC South. Or it could be a situation where this is just a cluster bleep division, much like last year, and the winner of the division is a 9-win team, and it's just a battle. It's just a battle till the very end where you just see raggedy football and a team wins the division. That's really going to be on Jacksonville. Like, is Jacksonville for real? because last year they really didn't do a lot. I know they won the playoff game. There's even controversy about that because there's a lot of NFL people who feel that the Chargers in the proposed scenarios should have hosted the game, and they also had the Titans injuries. So did the Jags take the next step to where they're an 11-win team, a mark that only 3 teams in the AFC had last year? Or do we see the Jags kind of stay with all these rookie quarterback teams, and there's a little bit of a cluster? That would be really interesting. By the way, comment. I'll get to them a little bit later on. I know we got a lot of sports going on, so I'm sure a lot of you are watching the Astros right now. Jordan just hit a bomb. Best hitter in baseball, by the way, when he's healthy. And the national championship game is blah. UConn's probably going to run away with that one. Izzy26 Blessed says, so you're cool getting CJ. I'm a Bryce guy. I'm not as high on CJ. I don't think CJ at number 2 is something that I would want to do, but I think that's something they will do. And I think that's something that CJ would not mind at all. So I'm a Bryce guy, but I think if it gets to where Bryce goes number 1 and Carolina talks himself into that, and according to King as well, there's a little bit of buzz about Carolina, then I just think the CJ is a possibility. It's not necessarily something I like, but it wouldn't bother me too much. Twan says AFC South, all new QBs means more primetime games. LOL. I don't know. I don't know if they want the rookie quarterbacks on primetime, especially with the growing curve, and especially given the fact that we don't know if Richardson and Levis are even ready to go. JJ brings up a good point. I wouldn't be mad because 3 rookies in the AFC South would mean that we would have the best one. You would hope so. There's no guarantees. It is a little bit of a cluster, but I would hope so. Marcus asks if I see the division being competitive this season. I do. But with 3 rookie quarterbacks, I think, let me just repeat what I said earlier. I think the division plays out in one of 2 ways. Either Jacksonville just takes the next step and they're head and shoulders above everyone, or it's just a complete cluster like it was last year. I would lean on scenario number 2, but I would have to see what Indianapolis did at quarterback and what Tennessee did at quarterback. I think the Texans are going to be a better squad. I just don't see Jacksonville as an 11-win team. I just don't. I've been high on Jacksonville the last couple of years, but I don't look at Jacksonville as an 11-win team. I just don't. Cebu, how soon do you think we could know who Carolina wants? Could it be before their card is in? Yeah, I think it'll probably be the night before. If you look at last year, the Travon Walker buzz happened it started happening at about this time. And then on draft week, the Monday or so, he was like minus 400 or something. So I would think it would be a little bit closer to when the draft is, although there's a lot of CJ buzz right now. Quincy asks, Landry, how do you think the fan base would react if the Peter King theory played out? Anderson at 2, would the buzz die out a lot? I think there'd be a lot of people upset. I would be interested to hear the explanation. And I think it would also matter. Would that mean, because under the Peter King theory, they draft Will Anderson first and then they trade up for their quarterback, which to me seems kind of weird. Like, if you're going to do that, wouldn't you trade back and then go get the quarterback with the extra picks? I mean, although maybe they just like Will Anderson. I couldn't follow the Peter King theory. It seemed a lot of hearsay, which is fun. And that's part of the joy of this. But would the buzz die a lot? Yes, I think there would be a specific reaction where a large portion would be upset if the Texans passed on either CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. Do I think Panthers fans, Domino, do I think Panthers fans would be mad if they drafted Bryce Young? I don't. I actually think they would realize that they got the best quarterback. But that's just me. Dark side DJ, Bryce or CJ, then do what we got to do to get Carter. Also go wide receiver, linebacker, and halfback in no particular order. See, that's a hell of a list. We'll play through 3 through 12 today. I actually got the old mock draft simulator ready to go. But we'll see what happens. POS, Jack Easterby, obviously a listener of the show. I've gone too far down the JSN hole that I have no backup plan on who I would want them to get if he's not there besides Bijan. So your offensive playmaker at number 12, JSN. I do wonder what's going to happen with JSN in that scenario. George asked him what they do with Mills. I mean, bring him into camp, see what he's got. Maybe he can play his way into being a backup. Maybe they're keeping a few quarterbacks. Maybe someone wants to trade a late round pick for him, but I mean, there's really no hurry to do anything with Mills at this point, even with Case on the roster. Joel says Indy fans on their podcast seem to think Stroud is falling to them. They are dreaming. What's the path to that? Is that does that mean that Bryce Young goes number 1 and then the Texans don't take a quarterback and then do they trade up to 3? Or do they think that CJ Stroud's going to fall to him at 4? That seems like a little bit of a wild scenario. Also kind of seems kind of vague when you're saying Indy fans without like the specific name or podcast mentioned there. Let's go through, though. I wanted to touch on this. Brown Chubby Bear. By the way, if you haven't seen Brown Chubby Bear's video, he just put up a video and he graded the Caserio draft class. He graded the 2021 draft class. I recommend checking it out. I told him that I don't think you should call it a rant because he's not ranting. And anyone who knows Brown Chubby Bears know his rants can be a little bit obnoxious. I like them, but they can be obnoxious. Some of the best produced videos you'll see. There's some really good nugs. Go check it out on his Twitter because I think it's really quality. I think he's selling it short by calling it a rant because there's a lot of depth and there's a hell of a lot of production to it. God dang, there's a lot of production to it. So I think you should go check that out. I just retweeted it at Landry Locker. Shout out to the crazy SOB BCB. He writes, with 4 QBs and 2 cornerbacks possibly going in the top 10, what are the chances Tyree Wilson or Jalen Carter drops to 12 and we draft one of them? I think it's decent. I am intrigued to see what's going to happen with Tyree Wilson, although I think someone's going to fall in love with Tyree Wilson. Although if you were hoping that he would drop, maybe something as petty as him not being able to work out because he can't sweat right now because of his foot procedure. Maybe that would be something that would help him fall. Juan's looking out for the likes. Go ahead and like, people. Like, subscribe, exit, like, do whatever you got to do. It helps the algorithm. I appreciate Juan for looking out. Here's what I want to do today. And this is against usually what I like to do, but let's just do a little like simulator of 2 through 12 or 3 through 12. And let's just see how it plays out for the Texans. And let's just kind of role play here and pick all the teams drafting up to 12 and kind of try to play out how this thing would go. So we're on the PFF simulator. Carolina's on the clock. Let's just pretend that Carolina selects. Man, they do not like CJ Stroud at PFF, do they? They got him behind Will Levis. Good God. But let's pretend that Carolina likes CJ Stroud and they draft CJ Stroud. And then let's pretend the Texans draft Bryce Young. Arizona is going to be sitting there. And I think this is when it gets really, really interesting, because Arizona at 3, what we do know about Arizona is not going to draft a quarterback. They got Kyler Murray. Maybe they draft a quarterback later on in the draft, especially if they trade. But Arizona's not drafting a quarterback. And I don't really want to do trades here, but for the sake of bleeps and giggles, let's just go ahead and see who we can trade with. All right, we got Seattle. They're trying to get me to subscribe to something. Seattle wants to trade out. I mean, I don't want to make unrealistic trades. So let's see if we can trade with Tennessee and make this thing realistic. Okay, let's trade with Tennessee. And let's try to get 11, a first next year, a second. Let's basically get what Seattle got, except let's throw in a 3 because you're not going to trade for DJ Moore. And it really doesn't matter what happens. I guess it's not going to oh, yeah, we got to trade 3 here. And it says the trade will not be accepted. So let's just go back here and let's just draft. Screw this. So let's go to Arizona, and let's not even F with these trades. Let's just pretend that Arizona stays, and let's go ahead and draft Will Anderson. Let's draft Will Anderson. And then go to Indianapolis. With Indianapolis, let's take Will Levis. Let's pretend the Will Levis buzz is there. Arizona could not get a trade. Indy takes Will Levis. And now we're on to Seattle. Now we start getting the questions. Yeah, I damn sure don't have this subscription in case that's not obvious enough. So let's say that Will Levis is drafted there. Then we go to 5 and we have Seattle on the clock. This is where we start talking about Jalen Carter falling. Let's pretend that Pete Carroll, who's a defensive guy, has studied the tape and that Pete Carroll loves Tyree Wilson. So he takes Tyree Wilson. You're sitting there with the Texans, and now Detroit's on the clock. Now, Detroit has a couple of first-round picks. Detroit could probably use a corner. They could swing for the fences and take Anthony Richardson, but let's pretend that they go corner and they take Gonzalez out of Oregon. We now got the Raiders. Raiders just agreed with Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to hold it down. Poor Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to have to get Trey Lance again, and the Raiders take Anthony Richardson. So if you're a Texans fan right now and Atlanta's on the clock, and this is how it's playing out, what are you hoping for? Are you hoping for Jackson Smith and Jigba? Are you hoping that maybe you can get someone on defense? Are you hoping that Carter falls? Let's say the Atlanta Falcons go corner 2, and they go with Witherspoon. So now Chicago's up. Chicago met with Jalen Carter today. Let's say Jalen Carter goes off the board at 9. So all the Texans fans that are hoping that Jalen Carter would fall, that is not going to happen. And we now have the Eagles at 10. Now, we're not doing trades in this, but I would say that if you look at the precedent that has been set, and this was a precedent in, I think, 2021 when the Dallas Cowboys were sitting at 10, and behind them, they had both the Giants and Eagles. The Cowboys decided to trade with Philadelphia because basically at that point, the Cowboys weren't going to take a receiver and the team behind them was going to take a receiver. The Cowboys traded with Philadelphia. Philadelphia moved up, I believe, from 12 to 10, and they took Devontae Smith. That price was a third-round pick. So if you're a Texans fan and you're sitting here and you're saying, okay, I want to trade up to 12 to 10 because I want Jackson Smith and Jigba, or I want Johnston, or I want the wide receiver that they like the most. The price to move up from 12 to 10 was a third-round pick when Philly did it with Dallas. Dallas ended up taking Micah Parsons. The Giants ended up trading out of the spot because they wanted Devontae Smith. So the Giants, as soon as they saw Devontae Smith go, the Giants traded out. But it was the cost of moving up 2 spots here from 12 to 10 in 2021. Y'all can correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it was a third-round pick. So that would be the price, just to put in perspective. There's also a relationship with the Texans and Eagles in that they made a trade last year in around this same range. As soon as Jameson Williams left, the Eagles traded up a couple spots with the Texans, and they ended up taking Jordan Davis. So you have the price, you have the prior relationship, but since we're not doing trades here, let's pretend that the Eagles, who have extra draft picks, they decide, F it. We didn't want to pay Sanders, so we're just going to take Bijan Robinson, and we're going to break the internet. So the Eagles take Bijan Robinson right there at number 10. Now you have the Tennessee Titans up, and the Tennessee Titans have a hell of a lot of needs. Tennessee did not trade up and get a quarterback. You're a Texans fan. You're probably hoping for the receiver, or you might be hoping for maybe an edge guy or something like that. Let's say the Tennessee Titans realize, okay, we just cut Taylor Lewan. We're going to take Paris Johnson out of Ohio State. We like the way he handles stuff, and we like the way that he worked out, and we need to replace Taylor Lewan. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go with Johnson. You now have the Texans at 12. You got your receiver there and Jackson Smith and Jigba. Maybe you're a Quentin Johnston person. Maybe you want to go defensive line with Kancey. Maybe you want to go edge. A lot of Lucas Van Ness love. Maybe you want to go corner with Joey Porter. For the sake of this, we're going to draft Jackson Smith and Jigba. We're going to call it a day. So there we go. And then we're going to leave that and be done with it. Those mock drafts give me a headache, especially when you're not trading and there's possibilities. But that's just the unpredictability of the number 12. I would keep a close eye on that wide receiver 12 to 10 move because we know the price. We know that they have a relationship with the Eagles. So I would keep a close eye on that. But I think the main thing that is going to happen when the Texans draft at number 2 is that there's going to be a lot of people crossing their fingers hoping that they get the pick of the top receiver. And in order to do that, I think they might have to trade up to 10. And I think Philadelphia might be willing to do that because I do think the Philadelphia Eagles are in position to where they're willing to take Bijan Robinson because they lost Sanders and they still have an extra draft pick. And if you're going to draft Bijan Robinson and there's not a lot of teams that are going to take him early, then you can stockpile more picks. You can add a third-round pick, and then you can take him at 12, or you could maybe even trade back a couple more spots. I would keep an eye on that possibility for the Texans. The relationship with Philly, the price that it takes to move up from 12 to 10, and everything that comes with that. That's what I would keep a close eye on. I threw out a possibility today, and this is the wildest possibility of all. There's no way this happens. But pretend that the Texans get to 12 and They love Paris Johnson out of Ohio State. They like Titus Howard. They don't necessarily think that even at his best, Titus Howard is going to warrant a Jawan Taylor type of deal, 4 years, $40 million. What if the Texans at 12, and this is wild, and it would probably lead to a little bit of drama. What if the Texans at 12 drafted Paris Johnson Jr.? They started him at right tackle. They moved Titus Howard back to left guard where he's played. He even played last year. And then they moved Kenyon Green to center, which is a place that he played at Texas A&M. So instead of having to draft a center, you have a more trim Kenyon Green who played center at Texas A&M. You move Titus Howard to left guard. You have your right tackle of the future, maybe even your left tackle of the future, and you fix the offensive line. Not going to happen, but we were talking about wacky scenarios, wacky possibilities. That was one that came up today on the show, and there were a lot of people that were kind of actually down with it, surprisingly, on the text line. Actually down with it, but it would be like if I were doing, I'll put it this way. If I were doing a Madden franchise where there were no emotions involved, then, and because I don't, if you're Titus Howard, you got to like try to get traded, right? At this point, if they're moving you back to guard. But if I were doing a Madden franchise where there were no emotions involved, I would consider this. I also wonder like how Kenyon would do at center. He did real well at center at A&M. And Titus did well as a guard. I know Frank is saying Titus did not do well as a guard. He did this year. The game that they moved him to, he actually played really effing well at guard this year. Now he struggled a couple of years ago, but the game where they moved him this year, he actually played pretty decent. Now Bevo's bringing up Kenyon Green being good at center or guard. He sucked no matter where you put him last year. And he was good at guard last year. I'm just saying he's done it. And the other thing would be if you told me that I had to put together the best offensive line possible, then I think that would be putting together the best offensive line possible. Now, is it investing too much? Are you going back down that path of investing too much? Possibly. Would Titus Howard be pissed off? Yes, and rightfully so. But if you told me I have to if my only goal was to put together the best possible offensive line and there were no other questions asked, and this isn't realistic, you can make a case that would be putting together the best offensive line possible, depending on how Kenyon would be at center. But we don't know how any of these rookies are going to be at center. I do wonder, and Kenyon looks trim, what that would be. Now, that was that was a long shot. Another one, and this one's getting brought up, and I don't know if this is a long shot or not. Let's say that Jackson Smith and Jigba goes before 12, and let's pretend that no corner goes. So Witherspoon doesn't go, Porter doesn't go, and Gonzalez doesn't go. So none of these cornerbacks go. And you get to number 12. Do you think about taking a corner? Now, I know you can look at your corners right now and you can say, you like Stingley, you like Nelson, you like Desmond King in the role that he had last year, you like Tremont Smith in the slot, you also like the way Jimmy Ward, if needed, can guard guys in the nickel. But Nelson's going to be a free agent after this year. King's going to be a free agent after this year. And Smith's not a guy that's a starting corner. So if you get to corner, if you get to 12 and your top corner is there, I know it's not a position that we've been talking about a lot, but do you consider taking a cornerback? There's a lot of people saying yes. There's a lot of people saying take Gonzalez. There's some Witherspoon, etc. The thing that Nick Caserio has shown this offseason, and I think Dalton Schultz is the best example of it, is he's willing to adjust to how things play out. They did not plan on signing Dalton Schultz at the start of free agency. But as time went on, the price became I said Tremont Smith. I meant Tavierre Thomas. They're so tight that I mix them up. I meant Tavierre Thomas, not Tremont Smith. Excuse me, Tavierre Thomas. Excuse me. But he's good in the slot. That's what I meant. Play some good special teams. Do you take the corner at 12? Because the other guys are going to be up. Because next year, corner is going to be a need. Unless you think Steven Nelson is a guy that's going to demand a long-term contract, you want to bring him back. Do you consider taking a corner? Seems like a lot of people would. I want to accumulate as much talent as possible. I see Tyler saying that. But the corner thing is interesting because it's very rare. And I think most of you can see it's very rare that when you're drafting where they are at 12, that you have a chance to get the top corner in the draft. I'm a big proponent of having the opportunity to get the best player at each position in the draft. I know that's the overall goal, but being the first person to take someone of that position, and if you evaluate correctly, which is easier said than done, then you get the best player at that position. If you're looking at this as a rebuild and you're looking at you're playing chess instead of checkers, if you're the Texans and there's no run on corners and you have a chance at 12 to get another starting caliber corner, you almost got to consider it. Almost got to consider it. And I wonder if they would. Furthermore, and I put this up on the video today, like if we get to 33, and let's say the Texans get to 33 and there hasn't been a safety taken and there hasn't been a tight end taken, is a 2-year commitment to Jimmy Ward, who you don't know if he's better at nickel. You don't know if he's better at safety. He's going to get a chance to play safety, at least according to D'Amico. If there hasn't been a safety picked and you have a chance to get the best safety in this draft, depending on who you think it is, do you think it's Johnson out of Texas A&M? Do you think it's one of the Alabama guys? If you get a chance to take the top safety in the draft, do you do it? Because there's a lot of mock drafts that you look at, a safety isn't taken. What if one of the tight ends, what if their top guy at tight end, whether it's Kincaid, whether it's Mayer, whether it's whoever, what if he's there? Is a 1-year commitment to Dalton Schultz and what you've seen from Quitoriano, is that enough to, in one of the better tight end classes that we've seen, is that enough to not take that guy there? You've addressed a hell of a lot of needs. And there is some, like Timothy's talking about Gibbs at 33. I love Gibbs. So you're preaching to the choir. I'm a big fan of Gibbs. But if you get to 33 and you have a chance, and it goes back to have an opportunity to take the best guy at the position in the class, if there hasn't been a safety taken, there hasn't been a tight end taken, do you consider doing that? I also think that of all the possibilities, assuming that they keep their 2/3, I think trading up in the second round is a possibility to get maybe a center or to maybe get someone on defense. But I do think the one thing that Nick Caserio has shown, and the one thing D'Amico Ryans kind of spoke on when he was interviewed at his opening press conference, is sometimes stuff just plays out and you end up taking something that you didn't originally plan on taking. Like when the San Francisco 49ers took Trey Sermon and then they took Elijah Mitchell. When the Patriots took Rob Gronkowski and then they saw Aaron Hernandez there and they just decided we want Aaron Hernandez. I think that's something that we need to keep an eye on with Nick Caserio. I don't know that it happens at 12. Maybe it does with the cornerback. I kind of feel like they're going to be desperate to get a receiver because I think they liked Jamison Williams last year. But at 12, watch corner and watch safety and tight end at 33. If we're talking about just some surprises or how stuff could play out. I think they're going to take a running back probably in the 3rd through 5th, although I'm not anti-Bijan. But as far as the positions to keep an eye on, I would keep an eye on that. I think center is going to happen. I don't know how desperate they're going to be to get a center. I think they're probably going to fall in love with the center that they think they can get in the 3rd. I don't think they're going to be taking centers in the 1st round, the 2nd round. But that's the beauty of this whole thing, is that we're finally here and the possibilities are really, really high. And if you're going to go to the draft party, you should. It's fun. Go to HoustonTexans.com. I think you can check that out. I don't know if the tickets are there or not. I'm going to be out there from picks 2 to 12. And then I'm going to come home and I'm going to do a live stream. So if you're not going, hell, don't go. And just be right here. And we'll keep this going. Bubba Homeschool. Trade number 2 in 2004 2nd round for Lamar and Patrick Crean. Offer Lamar 3 years, $30 million. Draft QB next year. Win, win, win. If you're going to trade for Lamar Jackson, I would do it after the draft. There's no rule that says you have to, and I'm not giving up the number 2 overall pick for Lamar Jackson when the Ravens have no leverage. I'm gonna perform the draft as if I'm the Texans and I decide I want to trade for Lamar Jackson, I'm going to perform the draft as normal. And then with my 3 first-round picks that I have in the next 2 years, and hell, if you're functioning under that, maybe you trade back from 2 and 12 and get even more assets. Then I go and sign Lamar Jackson. If I'm bringing in Lamar, I'm going to do it after I fill a draft class because I'm going to have to trade some of my draft equity to bring him in. So I don't see any reason why you do it before the draft. There's been talk that Indianapolis doesn't want to give up number 4 overall. So if the Texans trade number, I think it would almost be criminal at that point to do that. If you want to get Lamar Jackson, you should do that for a while. Or not for a while. You should wait a while to do that. I'm trying to see what this is talking about with Dallas. Wow, Dallas fans, and this was recommended. Good luck this season. I guess that's a good luck. From up 45. Isaiah says he hopes the Bills trade up to get Bijan. I dislike the Cowboys. Buffalo needs to come away with some sort of running game for Josh Allen. I don't know that Bijan's going to be there that late. But I would check that out. 0 tucks given. Assuming that's little Kyle Tucker homage says the biggest question mark for me is Lucas Van Ness. Didn't even start, and I've seen him mocked to us a lot. And JSN is very similar to Mechie, as a lot of overlap. I couldn't disagree more. I don't think JSN and Mechie are alike at all. I know they both played in the slot before, but JSN, I think, is a more complete receiver than Mechie. Only reason he didn't play outside was because of the guys that were on his team, Harrison, Wilson, and Olave. I also think he's a little bit more of a – Mechie going in the 2nd round kind of surprised me last year. I thought he was going to go 3rd. I like what Mechie can do in the slot, but I don't think him and JSN are similar at all. I think JSN is a better player. As far as Van Ness goes, I have seen him mocked a lot. I would have like a hot take on Van Ness, but I'll be honest, my dumb ass wanted no part of Karlaftis last year. And if they would have taken Karlaftis instead of Kenyon Green, no disrespect, I think we would be talking about how smart Nick Caserio looked, because Karlaftis looked like a hell of a baller on the Chiefs. So I would agree with you, but I'm just kind of I'm gonna take a step back in hot edge, takes, at least in that range, because last year my dumbass was really out on Karlaftis, and I was a dumbass on that. We've already been getting the, Bowers from Georgia and Harrison Jr. next year. I think Harrison's going to be a top 5 pick next year. I don't know if the Texans are going to have a top 5 pick, but there's a lot of talk about a lot of guys next year. Caleb Williams, Drake May, Bowers out of Georgia, Harrison, and some other guys. I found it interesting that Drake May actually rushed for more yards than Anthony Richardson. Does anyone else find that interesting at all? Like Anthony Richardson, for all the talk about the athleticism, and it seems like now we're getting like justification for why his completion percentage was what it was. It's kind of surprising that Drake May ran for more yards than Anthony Richardson. Anyone else a little bit surprised by that? I am. But I like Drake May a lot. I know Caleb's the guy that everybody talks about, but I'm a Drake May guy. And Anthony Richardson gets hurt a lot. I'm glad JJ said that. But he wasn't hurt really last year. He was hurt the year before. But as far as durability, Anthony Richardson has the most durability of any of the quarterbacks. He missed the most time, multiple injuries, knee surgery, concussion, hurt himself dancing, hamstring. But last year, he wasn't as injured. So, yeah. Joe Blue says JSN's the same height as Chase. Yes, he is. I don't know why people act like Jackson Smith and Jigba is like 3'7". Maybe it's because he played in the slot a lot, and you always assume that slot receivers are really, really, really short. But yeah. James says Drake May is a dog. He is, man. No one gives him the respect. Like all you hear is when people were talking about waiting for a quarterback, it was Caleb. Drake's that dude, man. He stayed loyal to Carolina too. Who knows what kind of bread he could have got. We got some Stetson Bennett stuff. I guess the Stetson Bennett arrest video came out. Didn't really check it out. Haven't clicked on it yet. Was watching the Stros in the title game, but I guess the video's out. Blue Boy 59 says at this point, Dalton Schultz just might be our best receiver going into the season. And if we do get Jackson Smith at 12, the wide receiver core going to seriously be lacking speed. Yeah, it's a slow receiving core. You are right about that. There's really not a lot of vertical threats. I know D'Amico mentioned Dalton as kind of a vertical threat. Hopefully he's not your top one. But yeah, that's a little bit concerning. Anthony Richardson actually likes to stay in the pocket and keep his eyes downfield, does a good job of not bailing in the pocket too early. Well, he probably should. I mean, if you're completing that percentage of your passes, you probably should be bailing out, especially if you're a freak athlete like that. I actually don't look at that as a positive for Anthony Richardson. If he's just staying in the pocket with that completion percentage, and I don't care what Orlovsky and everyone is doing, trying to like retweak it. I actually think that's kind of a lack of instincts. Tuck that son of a gun and run every once in a while. I call it the Vince Young method, the Jalen Hurts method. Like name an athletic quarterback, tuck it and run every once in a while. Like I don't look at that as a positive, him staying in the pocket. I look at that as kind of a lack of instincts. But to each his own. JSN speed getting kind of criticized, scrutinized a little bit. It's not that bad. It's really, really not that bad. Bubba talking about Bryce holding the ball too long and dropping back too far. That is one of the things. I think Seth mentioned it today. Bryce Young does drop back further than most of the prospects in this draft, which you can maybe get away with in college. Probably going to be at least an adjustment, one would think, in the NFL. But that is one of the things that the scouts and stuff have talked about with Bryce. Is there is a problem with that at times. JC is calling drafting a center in the 3rd round. I could see that happening. Dalton asks, if you were the GM and Bryce at 2, would you rather trade up for Anderson or select JSN at 12? If JSN falls to me at 12, I would rather do that. If you're going to trade up for Anderson, it's probably going to cost you one of your 1st-round picks. I mean, it would really – I like Will Anderson. I don't like how far – what are we trading? Are we trading from 12 to 7? Are we trading from 12 to 8? Is there a little bit of a fall? I would like to draft JSN if he's there. Jo back on the Anthony Richards thing. Well, he doesn't just stay in the pocket. He's just patient about leaving the pocket. He has the lowest pressure to sack percentage of all the QBs in the draft. Really good pocket awareness. He's 9th in rushing, man. Like for that, with that athleticism to be 9th in rushing, that's not good. And to have, like, you don't have good, what good is pocket presence if you're completing that percentage of passes? Like there's been like a real effort to like redo stats with Anthony Richardson. And if we're going to do that, let's just do it for everybody. Like, cause I saw like, there was like he threw the ball away this much and there were this many drops. I would like to see the drops. I would like if we're going to go that deep in, like if you're putting those stats together, you're just doing it to make him look good. Let's do that with CJ Stroud and Bryce Young. Like, let's adjust their drop passes and let's adjust their percentage of throwaways. It's like, okay, well, if you have good pocket presence, but you have freak athleticism and you're not running, I just don't really understand that. Isaiah's asking about Chase Young rumors. If the Texans trade for him, I'll trade the 12th pick and 3rd for Young to Washington for the 16th. Reason why, because we still have to pay him. I haven't heard anything about Chase Young rumors. I like Chase Young. I know he's banged up last year. But I know nothing of those rumors that you speak of when it comes to Chase Young. But I am a big Chase Young fan. He actually had some interesting the NIL comments that Chase Young had on the shop with LeBron James. I thought were interesting. He basically said that he played for the love of the game and he didn't know how many guys could handle the overall, like the money that was going to come with it. But I haven't heard anything about the Chase Young rumors. Which hole is going to be more glaring next season? Lack of wide receivers or lack of edge rushers? Let's talk about that after the draft. I think that's kind of a determining factor. As far as the edge guys, you're going to need, and I don't know that this is a good thing to need, you're going to need Jonathan Grenard to ball out. And when I say ball out, similar to what he was a couple of years ago, but he's got to stay healthy. So I would keep an eye on that. Tyler asks, when are you going to have McLean on the locker room to tell us what articles to go read? God. McLean's going to be on the show tomorrow at 11. If he's not good, then I'm never having him on again. I don't care what they tell me. Last week was disgraceful, trying to push us to articles instead of giving up content. So yeah, I had McLean on one time, and we'll grill him tomorrow. It might be the last appearance of the general ever, who, by the way, I'm looking at right now. If y'all turn on the Astros game and look to the left of the batter, you'll see John McClain in row 2, seat 2, and Sean Pendergast is right there by him. They're actually in the second row at the game right now, and I'm actually proud of them. Maybe it's because kind of called them out, but they have not left yet. So look at that. John McClain and Sean Pendergast going to the game and actually staying the whole time. Who said the speed of the game was a bad thing? Really nobody. That's the ultimate straw man, but they haven't left. So good on them. You look right there. McClain's in the hat and the red shirt, and Sean Pendergast, you can see his bald head right there. He's tweeting right now. Seems like it's kind of been hard for Sean to not have his have his phone up. Do I think the Texans should draft Caleb Williams next year? No. I think the Texans should draft Bryce Young this year. Is John McClain not retired? No, he works more now than he did when he retired. He got a whole city day, and now all of a sudden he works for Gallery Sports. He does some sports radio 610 stuff. He actually works more now than he did before he retired. He kind of stole a day from the city. I feel like Mayor Turner should take back McClain Day and give it to Mark Berman, because at least Mark Berman's not fake retiring. Oh, God. Yeah. Yeah, they're there. They're still there. Astros going into the bottom of the ninth. So we'll see what happens. Those Space City uniforms, by the way, these things are trash. I don't hate them. I just don't. I don't think they're like a multi-year thing. I think they were a good for last year thing, but I don't think they're like a multi-year thing. But that's really all I got tonight. We are 24 days away from the draft. I appreciate everyone for rolling through. Going to go through this 2-3-4 scenario tomorrow morning. I got some live stuff planned. I'm actually going to I'm going to have John Harris come in live. It's going to be a live episode with John Harris 2 weeks from now. He's going to come on. He's going to talk to all you people. He's going to answer all the questions. It's going to be pretty awesome because John Harris is my guy, and it's going to be out of like the whole radio thing, cussing and discussing with John Harris. So we'll talk to him a little bit. Also got a real big surprise coming through in the next couple of weeks. A legend. I don't think I'm using that too loose. A legend. And we're going to keep this going. And yes, I did say you people, Frank. No matter what happens, though, appreciate you all for coming through. If you don't mind, when you leave, like, subscribe, spread, ride along. No matter what happens when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in this together. Y'all have a good night.